So now I want to bring in Laura Figueroa Hernandez, White House correspondent over at Newsday. Laura, good morning. Great to see you as always. We saw 10 Republicans reach across the aisle to vote for impeachment. So this is the most bipartisan impeachment we've ever had in American history. And this ranges from the third most important House Republican, Liz Cheney, to even Republicans who are in districts that were won by Joe Biden. What were some of your big takeaways from yesterday?
Just again, how unprecedented this was. I know reporters everywhere keep using the word, but it's just really remarkable to see how far we've come from 4 years ago, where, President Trump held such a tight grip on the GOP. The fact that, there are some Republicans who will say, well, the majority of House Republicans stuck with Trump and these were only 10 Republicans, but that's 10 Republicans. That's compared to last impeachment last year, where only were no Republicans, where they were unanimous in their support behind President Trump. So to have 10 Republicans, to have the number 3 Republican, to have some freshman Republican who, this is their first term and they're putting themselves out there politically to take that stand against President Trump. It's really remarkable to see. And it's just remarkable that all of this is coming just in the last days of his presidency.
Absolutely. There were a couple interesting surprises besides just Liz Cheney. For instance, we knew people like Adam Kinzinger, Fred Upton, Meyer from Michigan, who, by the way, took over Justin Amash's seat. Those were probably likely Republicans that were going to convict, but there were some big surprises. For instance, Tom Rice of South Carolina, I have to admit, Laura, I gasped when I heard this, and I actually thought for a while this was maybe an error. Tom Rice, who has voted all the time with President Trump, has a 99% rating of voting with President Trump, voting to impeach. And in his statement, he said to reporters, "I have backed this president through thick and thin for 4 years. I campaigned for him and voted for him twice. But this is an utter failure and it is inexcusable." Is this going to show us, Laura, what sort of factions are going to happen now within the Republican Party moving forward when you have Trump Republicans now in districts won by President Trump overwhelmingly voting to impeach him?
Oh, no, definitely. I think we're seeing a Republican Party at the crossroads. This is a party that is deciding, are we still the party of Trump? Are we moving in the direction of Trumpism? Or did January 6th really change everything? And is it now an opportunity to break with Trump? And I think the party is going to continue having those discussions. To hear that Mitch McConnell is even weighing impeachment is remarkable. This is, the most powerful congressional Republican, essentially leaving the door open, leaving the option open to impeach, to uphold the conviction. Just a few weeks ago, that would have just been unheard of. So I definitely think there's going to be a lot of reckoning within the Republican Party. Do you stick with Trump, who has obviously a very loyal base, a very passionate base? Clearly, they stormed the Capitol. Or do you, try to, take some elements of Trumpism and figure out where the party moves forward from here?
Yeah, you mentioned Mitch McConnell. It's fascinating because in his statement, he didn't deny the reporting that is out there that potentially he might vote to convict President Trump. And you're right, in the first impeachment process, Mitch McConnell was lock and step with President Trump the entire time. So that is obviously groundbreaking. We should note 17 Republicans will have to join a unanimous Democratic caucus, and that has to include Joe Manchin here, for President Trump to get convicted here. Obviously, the Murkowskis, the Collins, the Romneys are probably going to vote to convict. But is there 17 votes there in the Republican chamber that might go with with Democrats here? Is that going to be a really hard stretch for Democrats to find those votes?
It is going to be a stretch, and I think Senate Democrats recognize that, but I think they also realize that time may be on their side. This attack just occurred a week ago, and there's still intelligence being collected. There's still arrests being made. And from here until January 20th, who knows what will be uncovered. I think there's, discussions among Senate Democrats and congressional Democrats hoping that perhaps, what we uncover from now until whenever there is an impeachment trial will be enough to persuade enough Senate Republicans that, look, this was an attack that was incited by the president, and we have more than enough intelligence to back that up. So we'll see.
Yeah, and let's talk about Joe Biden and all of this, because obviously Mitch McConnell, who, by the way, will not be the majority leader anymore on the 20th, Chuck Schumer officially will be taking over then. This is obviously going to impede his first days in office. And obviously a rule will have to be passed allowing the Senate to not only take up an impeachment trial, but also, confirmation hearings on all of Joe Biden's cabinet officials. How much of a distraction potentially could this be in the first 100 days or so of Joe Biden's term, given the fact that he has a very ambitious agenda, COVID relief, infrastructure spending, so many other big priority issues are really hanging in the balance here. Could this be a huge derailment for Joe Biden at the beginning of his term?
Well, President-elect Joe Biden, I think, has kind of been very delicate about his statements. He's very much said that it's up to Congress to decide, whether to impeach and uphold that conviction. He hasn't taken a public stance. So I think he's trying to take, I guess, a more diplomatic approach and not necessarily try to rally Democrats one way or another. It does have the potential to distract his first 100 days. And I think there's this recognition among Senate Democrats that it does. And so that's why you're hearing talk of whether, do you change the rules and hold an impeachment hearing and, cabinet confirmation hearings at the same time? Or do we wait, until after Biden's 100 days and then hold this trial just to kind of give him that opportunity? So I think a lot of that is still up in the air in terms of how Senate Democrats are going to proceed with the timing of this trial, because obviously they want to give Biden the full opportunity to have his, 100 days.
Yeah, either way, the next 6+ days going to be so wild. And as you mentioned, we use this term too often, unprecedented as well. Laura Figueroa, Hernandez at Newsday. Always a pleasure, Laura. Thanks so much for coming on.